Welcome to the Women Living Well After 50 podcast. I'm Sulon Carrick and I'm passionate about inspiring, motivating, supporting and informing women over 50 to embrace this exciting time of life. Health and wellness in mind, body and spirit are the foundations for living well, but there is so much more to a life well lived. Each week, through conversations with my guests, I'll be presenting topics that will help us all to live well and enjoy life. So join me as we discover new ways to become women living well after 50. Are you ready to start living? What are you waiting for? Let's get started. Welcome to another episode of the Women Living Well After 50 podcast. I'm Sulon Carrick and it's so lovely to have you join me and another guest this week on another episode. Now, are you feeling full of energy? Have you got confidence, full of vitality, ready to take on the world? Well, if the answer is no, my next guest today will help us to find that vitality and to be happy, healthy, and hot. Now, my guest is Elizabeth Resnick, a 55-year-old double certified health coach and author who loves teaching women of all ages to love their bodies and their lives. Happy, healthy, and hot is a unique combination of mindset, nutrition, and fitness that works. Elizabeth's clients achieve much more than weight loss. They report increased confidence, better energy, and overall vitality that they never anticipated. Elizabeth coaches clients all over the US and has started branching out internationally. She's been featured on television, numerous podcasts, and in 2020 was a finalist in the Maxim Cover Girl competition. Today, we're going to be discussing 5 steps to next level you, and also her journal, the Happy, Healthy, Hot Journal. So let's go and join the conversation. Welcome, Elizabeth, and it's so lovely to have you join me on the Women Living Well After 50 podcast.
Well, thank you. I am so happy and excited to be here, and I'm glad we figured something out despite our crazy time difference.
That's right. I find with the podcast that a lot of my guests are international. So, we've got to try and work out those time zones, and then you bring in daylight saving time and that sort of thing. It just gets so confusing.
But really confusing.
Yeah, but we've got together, so that's the main thing. And I'm excited to talk to you today because we're talking about being happy, healthy, and hot. And, as someone who's going to be 65 in a couple of months, I would certainly like to still be happy, healthy, and hot for a lot of years to come. So what I would love you to do is just give us a little bit about your background and what brought you to coaching, and then we can go on to talking about the 5 steps to next level you. So how did you, what's your story?
Okay, well, it's a long story, so I'll give you the condensed version, but I have always been interested in health and wellness. I would say my entire life. It's something I kind of grew up with. I'm very fortunate that even growing up in the late 60s and early 70s, my mom was kind of ahead of her time with really bringing healthy food into the house and things like that. So it's always been an interest of mine. Much of it was for aesthetic reasons, not so much the mindset, but just I wanted to look good, so I wanted to eat right. So it's always been a part of me. I did, however, over the years, struggle with some things. So despite looking put together on the outside, I had cystic acne on and off most of my life. I was able to hide that with makeup, but it's still there and it's painful and you're always self-conscious and, it's very emotionally painful, especially as a teen, but even going into adulthood, it doesn't get any more fun. And along with that, had some recurring digestive issues and some anxiety that started in my 20s. I just kind of thought all of this was who I was. The digestive issues and the anxiety, I just thought that's who I am. It was the acne that really made me crazy. So in a quest, as much as I was eating well, in a quest to clear up my acne, I kept trying different things and eliminated some foods that were inflammatory towards me and found out as the acne cleared up, the digestive issues and anxiety were resolved. I mean, got much, much better. So that made me even more, and this was in my mid 40s, that made me even more excited about health and wellness. And I just thought, well, I really didn't think about coaching at the time, but I wanted to do something with this interest and passion of mine that I'd always had. And I realized that I wanted to share it. My idea was I really liked blogs. I was always a big reader, but then as I discovered blogs, I was like, wow, it's really fun to read something written by somebody that I relate to. And so I initially, like, Happy Healthy Not started just because I wanted to write a blog, but I wanted to have some credentials. So I enrolled with Institute of Integrative Nutrition in New York to earn health coaching certification, but I was really just doing it so I have these credentials to write this blog, which I started so I was in 2014. I started the blog in 2015. It was called Happy Healthy. Well, it was called, had my name. It said Elizabeth Resnick. And then the little tagline was holistic health for women who want to feel happy, healthy, and hot. But that phrase just kind of stuck, and that became the name. And then the next year, kind of stumbled onto Instagram, and that just took off. And then people were saying, well, do you coach? Can I work with you somehow? And it's like, well, yeah, we could. And then actually, but it's just interesting. Coaching wasn't my initial goal, but I love doing it because it lights me up to see women make simple changes and see these results that just ripple out. Like, typically they come to me because they want to lose weight, but then, and there's something else, and I'm tired all the time, or, whatever, I want more energy, but then it just affects every other area of their life. They're saying, my gosh, people are asking me what I'm doing, and I have so much more energy. And, just to give you an example, this one woman, Laura, she's amazing. She's 58, had put on some weight, taking care of elderly parents and just some stress eating and things like that. She was very active, taking care of her parents, but just was not taking care of herself. Started out just following me. She was following me on Instagram, started implementing some of the tips that she was like, wow, I've been following this person for years. Maybe I should try some of the stuff. Started implementing some of the things that I was sharing. Bought my Happy Healthy Nut journal, and she heard about that, started using that, started seeing results as she was losing weight, she was having more energy, she was feeling better, and then reached out to me for one-on-one coaching. This woman is now taking belly dancing classes, feeling amazing. We celebrated when she had to go buy all new jeans because nothing fit anymore. But it's so exciting to see all of these fun changes that she's seeing in her life. And I mean, that's just one example. That's just somebody who popped into my mind as we're talking about this is why I love coaching. So I ended up actually getting a second coaching certification as a primal health coach, which goes into a lot of the paleo, when it's a lot more science. And I don't advocate, I don't believe there's one perfect way for everybody to eat.
No.
I have clients that are, everything from vegan to one woman who went carnivore for a while to deal with some inflammation. So different things work for different people. But I love seeing women light up and seeing their whole lives change when they really thought they were just changing one thing.
And I don't think people realize the value of a coach. I think that they don't really understand what coaching is sometimes, and it is probably people that come to you after seeing what you've been doing yourself, or, as you said, posting the tips on Instagram or other social media, and they suddenly think, oh, that person might be able to help me. And I find that I'm a fitness instructor, and I just get so much joy out of seeing women who start off and they're nervous, or they're not sure what to do, and then suddenly they get that confidence and they're feeling healthy and happy. And it's so lovely to see that transformation, isn't it? And that lady that you said, your example, 58, and she took the chance of working with you, and now she's enjoying her life, a new wardrobe and belly dancing and lots of fun things. So
it's just so much fun. And that's really, I think the benefit of coaching is there's so much information out there, and people get all this information, but they don't know what to do with it. So a lot of women are surprised. First of all, something that I know that I'm good at is simplifying things. So I make it really simple for them, but it's also a matter of you can have all this information, but you don't know how to implement it into your own life. And that's where working with somebody one-on-one, or, I've done some small group programs, we can look at, okay, what is your life like? Okay, and we make things work in their life, and that's why it sticks. And then just having somebody to be accountable, or then to come back and say, oh, now I'm running into this, what do you recommend? And so it's really, I just love it. I love it.
And I think that's an important point too, because not one size doesn't fit all in anything that we do. And there is so much information out there. We can, really get information overload. So you need someone to be able to help you understand it all and to find out what's right for you, because what you're doing might be fine for you, but not work for me. So, we are individuals and our bodies are all different. And so I think it's important to understand that point that you've raised, that, you think about yourself as an individual, you work with your coach, and you can get that tailored program. And then as you come up, you might solve something, and then something else might come up, and you've got someone.
Life happens and things change, and then you need to pivot a little bit, you need to adjust. But I also think with all this information out there, people get into this whole analysis paralysis where they're so busy trying to find the perfect plan that they're doing nothing. And where they could be doing, okay, you don't know what the perfect workout is for you. Well, let's start something. Go out for a walk, start lifting some weights, whatever, but start doing something, and you'll figure out what's best. We can help you figure out what's best, but people don't want to do anything because they're trying to wait for something to be perfect, and it's never going to, it's not going to be perfect.
That's exactly right. Don't wait for the perfect moment, because the perfect moment will never really come.
The time is always now.
That's it. Okay, so let's talk about your 5 steps to next level you. If you would like to take us through that, because I'm sure that's all part of being happy, healthy, and hot.
Well, it really is. So I'll tell you a little bit about this. It's a little backstory. I left a an unhealthy relationship, very unhealthy relationship. I was married for close to 25 years. I was with the same guy, met when I was 22. Filed for divorce at the age of 49. So for the first time, it was a scary, scary process for me. In so many ways. But for the first time, I realized that I had the opportunity to create my life. All this time I've been kind of, and many of us do this, following this path. You start out on a path and you get pretty far down the path, and maybe you're not realizing, I'm not sure that I want to be on this path, but it seems like a lot of work to get off of it. So, and not only that, but when we're whether we're parents or what, we're playing these roles that we are meeting a lot of other people's needs sometimes. And so for the first time in my life, my kids were at that point, were in high school. But for the first time in my life, I was looking at, wow, I have the opportunity to create my life, to decide what I want my life to be. So I began doing this rather than doing it. I think sometimes we're always creating our reality, but we're not really doing it intentionally. So I started really doing this with some intention. And I mean, even before I left the marriage, I was spending some time kind of thinking about what I wanted my life to be. And so that was starting maybe around the time I was 47 or so. And here I am about to turn 56. And I am living this life that I visualized, and it's continuing to grow and evolve. And these 5 steps to next level you are something that I'm going to walk you through this process that I took. But it's something that I continue to do, and you just continue to refine, because we're always wanting to step into our next level. But it's exciting to think that when we're in our 50s and 60s, that we can be creating this beautiful life that's what we want it to be. You know, it's really an exciting time. So I think we reach a point in our lives where we're less concerned with pleasing everybody else and understanding that, you know, it's up to everybody to make themselves happy. It's not our job to make everyone happy. It's not anyone else's job to make us happy either.
That's right. Yeah. And I think it's you get to a point in your life, and I look at it as living life your way. And that's very difficult to do because we do want to please everyone else. But, when do you get to that point in your life where you say, well, now it's my time, and you have to grab life because you never really know what's going to happen. And so you have to be thinking of yourself as an individual as well as wearing all those other hats that we all wear.
Play all of these roles and wear all these different hats and be an individual and make sure that our needs are met.
Yeah.
And understand that ultimately we're responsible for making that happen. It's not up to somebody else. It shouldn't. When we're making our happiness conditional upon somebody else, we're really giving them all of the control.
That's right.
So,
yeah.
So let's dive in. I'll tell you what these steps are, and then we'll go into some details. So first step one, and just doing this one exercise can really be life-changing. It really was for me. Step one, figure out who she is. So who is your next level? Who do you want to be? And so many times, there was a stage in my life where if you said, what do you want to do? Like, I wouldn't have even known, because all I knew was this path that I was following. So the way I did this, and this was about 8 years ago, when I first started doing this, again, I continue to, is I started just imagining, like, if I could design my life, what would an ideal day look like? Not a day necessarily on vacation, just a day in my life. And I just started daydreaming. I think about this while I was out for a walk, while I was walking my dog. And I saw that there were many things in my life that I loved and wanted. I wanted to have I knew I wanted freedom. I knew I wanted a somewhat flexible schedule, like a loose structure. I thrive in a loose structure. I knew I wanted to be able to spend a lot of time outdoors. I knew I wanted to be doing something with health and wellness. At this point, I wasn't quite sure exactly what it was going to be, but I was, getting there. And so I believe we can do this starting with visualization and just kind of daydreaming. But I think it's great also to put pen to paper and start doing some. I find that very powerful, and start writing some of this down. And just, again, I think it's great to look at an ideal day, and starting with waking up in the morning. What time is it? Where are you? What's the first thing that you do when you get out of bed? Like, who are you with, or are you alone? There's so many details. What do you wear? Where are you living? How are you spending your time? Who are you socializing with? There's all these little details, and it can get really interesting and fun, and really tapping into not just these actions and what your day looks like, but how does all of this feel? How do you want to feel? And the more I feel, the more detail you can go into it, it just helps it become very real. So for me, so that's where the first step is, figuring out who she is.
Just before you go on to step two, then, that's a great point, because a lot of us, you'll hear, where do you want to be in 12 months, 5 years, 10 years? And that can just seem so, well, I don't even know where I'll be in 10 years. I'll be hopefully here, but, I'll be 76, so 75. So, trying to think that far ahead is not easy. Whereas I love the simplicity of a day in your life. How do you see that day? And even from the time you wake up, you do go into detail, but it's nothing more than one day. And how, and I think that is something that I'm really impressed with, because as I said, we're always said, they say, write down, where do you want to be in 3 months, 6 months, 12, all that way. And you get overwhelmed. And, you just sort of think, oh, this is all too hard. I can't think
Right.
about it. Whereas just that one day, that step one, I think would be so powerful.
That's what I'm saying. Just this one step can change your life, because then when you figure out what you want your ideal day to look like and feel like, you can start making changes right away
Yeah.
to make some of that happen. So then step two sounds a little funny, but I believe in this, and that's give her a name. So, you're picturing your next level, and this, it's playful and it's fun, but it can be very helpful. And the reason for this, the backstory to this, the reason it started for me is shortly after I filed for divorce, I was dealing with some really difficult feelings that kept coming up. Feelings many times after an interaction with my ex-husband, I have these feelings of like really dark feelings, shame and guilt. And while we need to feel the feelings, and I don't believe in brushing them aside, you don't want to stay there too long. And a friend of mine, when I was going through an especially hard time, said to me, she said, Elizabeth, I'm going to say this in the most loving way. You're a badass. Like, stop letting this get to you. And so after that, I would start to refer to myself as badass Elizabeth. And it became this alter ego that when I was struggling or not knowing what to do, I'd say, what to say, what would badass Elizabeth do in this situation? So it kind of became my alter ego, my next level. And over the years, I've come up with different names. So starting in late 2019, I started referring to myself as Eliz 2020. I was like, this is going to be a new year for me. And what's amazing is people can say what they want about 2020. I know it was a challenging year, but it was a really transformative year for me. And I believe so much of that was because I was really looking at it as, this year I'm stepping into a new level. And I truly did. I truly did. So Eliz 2020 had a good run. After lately, it's been next level Liz, and I'm going through this. I'm actually taking some time in the next week or so to go through this, to really sit down and go through this process again as I'm approaching a birthday. This is my 56th birthday this summer, and just kind of looking at where do I want to be? Where do I want to grow? So it's, this is something that I come back to time and time again, but I've had a lot of people really enjoy giving themselves a name. It's just a fun little thing, and then you can kind of check in with yourself.
Well, I think that's a good idea too, because we don't want the process to be mundane or too difficult. We want to have a bit of fun in the transition, because otherwise we're going to give up, or we're not going to be as invested. But I was thinking about that when you said, was it Eliz 2020? A lot of us, myself included, will select a word of the year, but perhaps we could be selecting our new you each year, or our next level. So, it could be Sue 2023 or something next year, so that's another twist on word of the year, how you want to live your life and focus your life in a certain way. So I think that's another great step.
Great. And I think it really is fun. And I really believe in making things fun and playful. And I give things catchy names. I break things down and make them simple. When it comes to nutrition advice and everything, it's just, that's how you remember it and make it doable for people. So step 3 is also very transformative. And that's make space for her. And I mean this in a lot of different levels. Physical clutter, we know, slows us all down. And I'm, believe me, as guilty of it as anybody. It slows us down. It keeps us kind of taking care of all of our stuff. So some steps so when I'm saying create space for her, it's on a lot of different levels. It's on a physical level, clearing clutter out, certainly. Cleaning out your closet, getting rid of clothes that aren't representative of who you want to be. It's making space for things that you want to call into your life. So for example, say you're wanting to call in a relationship. Is there a space for that person, both in your schedule and in your physically, in your space? Like, if you want this new man in your life, is there room in your closet for him to hang up his coat? That sounds silly, but it's really making space for things. Say anything that you're unhappy with, like say you're not liking your car and you'd really like a new car. Well, clean out the car you have, take care of the car you have. It's also just kind of symbolically showing that you are ready for something new. But then it's also clearing your schedule of things that aren't serving you, really looking at how you're spending your time. Sometimes saying no to, I used to say yes to every invite, just thinking, oh, well, I don't want to, people might talk about me if I don't go. And I started realizing sometimes it was just not worth my energy, and so learning to say no to things and not make excuses or justify, just learning to say no. Or looking at where you're spending your time. If you're up late binging Netflix, would that time be better? Could you have gone to bed and then gotten up earlier to work out and take care of next level you physically? Because next level you is probably in really good shape, but it's harder to do if you're up late watching TV or scrolling on your phone. So it's making space physically, clearing your space of clutter, but also, your mind and your schedule and all of those things. And a little personal story that I would share there. Clearing out, certainly your purse, your wallet, all those old receipts, stuff like that. Like, we don't need that, but a story that I would, just my own personal take on this is when I left my marriage, when I filed for divorce, I moved into a townhouse, which is where I'm still living. And I hated it. I hated it here. I didn't know, I had nothing in the house, which wasn't great, but I complained about every single thing about this house. And I resented my ex living in our big, beautiful home that I'd left. And I was living here and I didn't have anything. And I was so unhappy. And that wasn't doing me any favors. And I started to realize it started with really small upgrades, like replacing my tap. I was given a lot of hand-me-downs as I first got started. It started with a really simple upgrade of, I had these hand-me-down towels, and they were great in the beginning, but then you're like, ugh, like this isn't, it's kind of reminding me of that time. And it started with upgrading my towels, but one thing led to another. And I completely changed this space. And I'm not going to stay here forever. And I know that, but I love my little house now. It's a beautiful little space. It totally suits me. I change it around. I can change colors, do whatever I want, whenever I want, because right now it's just me here. But that changed my whole vibe. And it's as I changed that and fixed up my home and make it comfortable for me, I started letting people in. I started letting people into my life more, opening up more with people, being more authentic. So that was part of me stepping into a new level, was changing my space.
That's a good point. The environment that you're in, and the other thing is that, okay, you didn't like where you were, and you probably had moments of feeling sorry for yourself for being in the situation and that sort of thing. But I think what you did then was, your next level was, well, what can I do to make this space feel better, make it feel good for me? And just the little things that you suggested, buying new towels, or just maybe a bunch of flowers or something, just to brighten up. And then and I think that as you work through the different steps, you're gaining confidence, you're feeling happier. So I think you're more accepting then of things. You accepted the situation you were in, but you weren't going to stay there and dwell on it. You actually did something about it.
Right. So that was really transformative to me. But I just find so many women are helped by this and inspired by this. And, certainly women that are, somebody on a fitness journey and a health journey, a lot of times they're hanging on to old clothes. They're between sizes. Like, get rid of the old stuff. Don't say you're going to lose weight to fit into your old stuff, because you don't even like it anymore. Buy some clothes that, have clothes in your closet that you feel good in now. And then, as Laura did, celebrate when it's time to buy all new stuff. And that's a great journey to go on. But, make sure that you feel good where you are now.
Yeah.
Except where you are.
Yeah. And I also like the way that you're referring to she rather than me. Because, you're sort of looking at it probably a little bit more objectively. If you're looking at as, I'm leveling up to she, what would she be in my next level up?
Right.
and rather than, I think you can just look at it more objectively then than if you're thinking me all the time, or I
Right.
can't do that. Whereas you're
Exactly.
going, well,
I don't.
she's
Right.
going
What
to
would
do
she
that.
do? What would she be wearing to this event?
Yeah, yeah,
What? Yeah. So it's those little things. It's the yeah, in fact, we'll talk about that a little bit more in step 5 also. But yeah, it's looking at like what would she do? And then you step up.
yeah.
You want to be her? Well, you step up and you do that. So step 4 is supporting her with affirmations and visualization. So really that reprogramming our subconscious mind. I am really big. Anybody who's followed me for more than a few minutes knows that I'm really into positive affirmations and, just it's all our perception. How are we choosing to look at things? Just like I looked at this house as this sad, miserable place, and then now I love it. So I think that using the affirmations, the visualization helps keep you on track, especially on the days when, we all of these days where things are not going according to plan. So I'm really big on, first of all, using affirmations that feel good and to you. So like if you're like, I love to say I'm living a life beyond my wildest dreams, but to some people that doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel real to them. Well, then maybe I'm creating a beautiful life for myself. Like use something that feels right to you. And at different times, different affirmations might feel good, but you can take your goals and turn them into affirmations. Like I'm on a little bit of a fitness journey. I've always been in, pretty fit, but I've set some goals for myself for the upcoming year. And I say I am in the best shape of my life, physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. Like that's one of my affirmations that I say every single day when I get up in the morning, because I want to tap into that feeling. And then, you can be saying this out loud. You can write it, which really helps imprint it. You can be saying it in your head when you're, in a boring meeting or something. I program them into my phone so they go off at different times during the day as a little reminder. Another favorite of mine is "It's Already Mine," and right, for me that's very powerful. And then using that visualization. So as we talked about in the beginning, figure out who she is. Tap into those little pictures that you have in your head. Maybe as you're going to sleep at night. You don't have to go through every little detail. You're probably going to fall asleep, but go to bed picturing this life that you're creating and thinking about that. And that's like putting your subconscious mind to work. Instead of thinking about all the things that went wrong, think about, or being frustrated with yourself. I like to, at the end of the day, celebrate my wins. So I have an alarm that goes off my phone at night, 9 p.m. as I'm starting to wind down, that says celebrate my wins. And I'll look back at the day and pat myself in the back for the ways that I showed up for myself. And even if you had a frustrating day, you can look at some things that you did really well. And then as you're going to sleep, just think about this life that you're creating, and this next level you, this level that this person that you're stepping into.
And that would really make you feel excited and
Yes.
having a purpose, really,
Yes.
because sometimes we get lost because we don't have a purpose. Well, what better purpose than ourselves to work
Right.
on?
That's the best purpose of all. And I definitely got that idea of thinking about it before bed from Wayne Dyer, who he's talked a lot about that 5 minutes before you go to sleep as being such a powerful time. And it's like that's when you're really setting the tone, and then your subconscious mind can go to work and be figuring all kinds of things out for us. So then the last step 5, is be her now. What would she do today? And this really came about, it's taking that inspired action. So just because you're not where you want to be, what can you do right now to make something happen? And many, many years ago, before I went back to my health coaching certification, I was talking to my therapist. My therapist said, be the person you want to be, which is pretty much the same thing. And I had told him that I wanted to start a health blog for women, but I felt so overwhelmed because there were so many steps. And he said, well, what can you do before you come back and see me next time. And I was like, oh, like, okay. So I started thinking about these steps. And so he held me, definitely held me. That got me going. And after that, I started holding myself accountable. And, so many times you hear this, there's this, I don't know exactly how the saying goes, but, it's not necessarily even about the destination. It's about who you become along the way. And so I learned so much about myself just in that process of figuring out what I would need to do to start this blog and then actually doing it. And, it was, the whole thing was really exciting, but, so I'm saying be her now. It's what does she wear? What does she do? How does she speak to herself? How does she speak to other people? How does she walk? It's little things. It's the shoes you put on and carrying yourself a little bit differently. It's wearing the cute workout clothes that you feel great in instead of just throwing some frumpy thing on because you're not super confident in your body. It's what would she do? And then you do that. And I just find one step leads to another. It's taking that one step that feels good. It might feel a little scary, but it feels good. And then that leads to the next step and the next step. Even if you have the path all planned out, it's never going to be linear. And you're never going to follow all this. We know in life, there's
That's
all types
right.
of endurance, and then that's what keeps life interesting anyway.
Yeah.
But
yeah, no, I was just going to say it's that, I call them micro steps or baby steps, or, I think a lot of times people want to make changes, but they go, oh, there's that big change up there and I just can't get to it. But by saying, what can you do today? Even just one little thing, even if it was to write down, I am going to do this or something.
Make a list of some things
that you could do, and they don't have to be big. The little ones will add up, and as you're ticking them off, you're feeling better and you're feeling more motivated to achieve more and to want to keep going. And I just think that that's a good point that you've raised too, about the fact of what can she do today? Because the other thing is we can be doing all this planning, but it's no good if we don't take any action.
Absolutely. So yeah, like just to give some concrete examples, when I was wanting to start my blog, one thing I did, I thought of an acquaintance that I knew who wrote a blog. It wasn't completely different, but I thought, okay, let me reach out to her and ask her for some tips. So set up a coffee date with her, said, hey, and made it clear, I'd love to pick your brain. You're doing this. I'd love to know, get some ideas. Sat down with her, just started doing some research. It was like one thing after the other, then started looking into the health coaching programs and what different nutrition certifications I could get, which one made sense, which was the best one for me. Once I thought I knew, then I started reaching out to some people that had gone through the program to ask them about it. It was like one step led to another, but I didn't even know all the steps to take in the beginning. I would have been completely overwhelmed. But when you just start taking that action, and action builds confidence. Builds confidence. We can sit and plan all day long, but it's taking the action that builds our confidence and builds up that momentum to keep going.
And I think another important point too, from your example, is to not be afraid to ask for help if you need it, because you don't have to do it on your own. And if it's something that you do need a bit of technical help with, we'll find a professional who will help you. Or if it's someone that you just need to talk through things with, have a friend or a cheerleader, I'd call them. You surround yourself with those people, and don't be afraid to say, hey, I feel overwhelmed. Can I just talk this through? Or I find that myself, I will get myself into a situation where I've just overcommitted or whatever, and I'm feeling overwhelmed. But then if I talk to a friend and just get it all out, then half the time they don't have to say anything. I solve it myself.
Yes, I think that's a great point. So a couple things that I like to reflect on. First of all, sometimes you just need to process it by talking to somebody. And it's not that you're even asking them what you should do, but talking to someone helps you process and make a decision. But also that asking for help There's so many different ways to do that. And I think we need, it's great to have a lot of different resources. So have that friend who's a great cheerleader and is cheering for you and rooting for you. And that's, hopefully several of those friends, surround yourself with those people, because that's so important. And then you're right, when you need the technical help or whatever it is, hire somebody to, there's nothing wrong with hiring somebody to do the things that you can't do or just choose not to do. And then educating yourself. I remember when I first got on Instagram, I actually took a course about Instagram. Which now all the stuff that I learned is outdated, but boy, it helped me back in 2016. It really helped me. And I took a digital course on building an Instagram account, on how to gain followers. And it was so helpful, taught by someone who had done just that. So we can learn. There's so many, it's a great time to be alive, because there are so many resources out there, and you just need to be willing to, ask for help.
I think that's so important, because sometimes you can feel you're alone. And of course, in this journey, it's for you, it's for your own personal growth. But, you can feel sometimes that you just can't do it. And you might need someone, and I know, like, for example, the technical side of things, not many people know how to build a blog, or how to, they don't even understand about things like algorithms in Facebook and Instagram and all that. And a lot of those technical terms can, sort of stall you, because you think, gosh, I don't understand that. And then your brain starts going and you procrastinate because you can't get past that point. So I think that's a good point about asking for help, is from professionals, in whatever it is.
Right. Ask somebody who knows what they're doing. It's just like, there's so many resources out there these days.
Yeah. And saves you a lot of time.
It really does. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So that's that last step, is be her now, is step into it, embody her, take the inspired action. And then you keep going back to this. It's a constant process, because we're always shifting and changing and growing. Something else interesting, as I talk about be her now, something that I've done, and I'm not saying everybody has to, it's something that's been interesting for me, is many times as I'm at a big step in my life, I've made a symbolic purchase for myself, maybe a piece of jewelry or a nice bag, that to me is like symbolic of my next level. And that's something that's always worked for me.
Yes.
I have fun with, and it's something that's really a treat, and for me, a luxury item, because it just reminds me of what I'm doing.
Yeah, and where you've come, how far you've come. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's good. That's good. Exactly. Now we've talked about those 5 steps, which is great, and I just love the approach, because, as I said, the simplicity of it. I'm not saying that to do it is simple, but sometimes we overthink everything. Sometimes it's just, people make things too hard. These 5 simple steps, if you can look at it with a clear mind, I think are great. So what I'm thinking then is, I'd like to talk about your book, The Happy, Healthy, Hot Journal, because I think that obviously works in with the 5-step plan.
It really does. And so I created, this is the journal. It's really big. So it's 90 days to love your body and your life. And I created this because what I was noticing, it was really something, I think everything that I've done and created is because it was something that I wanted for myself, and I also saw a need for. So I have, I'm always talking about the affirmations and setting intentions for the day and things like that. And that was something that I was always journaling and just writing down in these different journals. But I've also found that as I work with women, it's really helpful for them to track what they're eating and their workouts in some way. And I know there's all kinds of apps for that, but as we know, there's something very powerful about putting pen to paper.
Yes.
And it keeps you really honest. And it's something that's been really eye-opening. A lot of times when I first start working with someone, I'll encourage them to do this, and they realize, like, oh, it helps you to see patterns. It really keeps you honest with yourself. You might say, oh, do I really want to write down do I really want to put this in my journal? No, so I don't think I'm going to do this right now. So I found it keeps us honest. It's great. It doesn't mean you have to track every single macro or anything. People can get as detailed or not as they want, but it's more about self-awareness. So I was encouraging my clients to do that, and it's something that I've done over the years. I now do on a regular basis. I'm happy with my weight. I'm happy with my level of fitness. I'm always trying to get even better, but it's so interesting for me. I can look back and see, wow, look how good I feel when I'm doing this. Oh, isn't that interesting? That was a harder week for me. Let me look and see what happened there. So it's a way it's really interesting. It's all information. It's not good or bad. It's not guilt or shame. It's information. So I created this. It's something you can start whenever you want. There's some steps to take in the beginning, just kind of writing out some goals for yourself. But then each day has room for, there's rooms like space to write out what you're grateful for, something you're proud of, because I think that's so important, setting an intention for the day and writing out an affirmation for the day. But then there's also space to fill in what you're eating, how you're working out, any additional notes. And then I put a little tip down at the bottom of each page. It might be a positive quote, a nutrition tip. But then what I have found most helpful, and what I'm hearing from women that are using it is most helpful, is every 7 days there's a weekly check-in. And it just gives you a chance to reflect on what you did well in the past week and what you could improve on, and then kind of figure out what you're focusing on for the week ahead. And this is what I found most helpful, because I've always been writing all this stuff down, but it forces you to look back and say, oh, wow. Oh, and it's a great way to congratulate yourself, to say, wow, what a great week that was. And so that just really helps to build positive momentum. And I made it 90 days because 90 days is, and then most people find themselves wanting to, they just start it all over. But 90 days is a short enough period of time to commit to say, hey, I'm going to, even if I've never journaled before, it's never really worked for me, I'm going to commit to do this for 90 days. So it's short enough to commit to, but long enough to see results.
Yeah, that's true. I was going to ask something then, and I can't remember. It'll come back to me, I suppose. But I think that having that idea. Oh, that's right. You were saying about looking back and seeing your wins and your positives of the week, which is great, because I think we need to. We don't tend to dwell on our wins. We tend to wallow in what we haven't achieved.
Exactly.
But I think we've got to find that balance, because if we haven't had a good week, and I know myself, I've had some challenges in our life over the last 12 months, and it's so easy to, I don't know, just get drawn down all the time and overwhelmed by what's happening. And you forget about the little shining lights during the week. Now, sometimes there aren't any, but it might be that, well, okay, I'm still here. I've got through this week. And I think, I think that people tend to, it doesn't have to be, oh, I've run a marathon or I've done this. It could just be, you know what, I'm going through a really rough time at the moment, but I managed to do this, or I got through the week. And I think that that's important.
Sometimes I congratulate myself for feeling the hard, dark feelings and sitting with your feelings. That's huge. Learning to do that actually helps you deal with emotional eating and all kinds of other things. But it's saying, hey, I still managed to get out for a walk every day.
Yeah.
Even though I was having a really, really hard time, I still managed to show up for myself in that way.
And I think, go on.
Oh, no. So I was going to say, it's celebrating that, even those little habits, and just being consistent with them.
And I think the journal's a good idea as well, because if you have had a bad week, or you feel you have, you can look back and see what was happening and maybe what triggered you in, different ways. Perhaps you weren't feeling good about something, and then that triggered, well, I'm just going to go and have a tub of ice cream or whatever to make myself feel better. So it's a good analysis tool as well.
Yeah, it's really, I have just found it to be so helpful for myself, and I'm seeing women really getting real results. I mean, there's one woman in my community, Corinne, who she started this in August and just kept with it, and by Christmas had lost 25 pounds. But again, it's just the overall, wow, I feel good, I'm energized.
Yeah.
I'm excited to work out. I'm showing up for myself. I'm having fun. It's all of that. And it's just that I don't want to say she's consistently showing up for herself and seeing the results. Showing up for herself, even when things, aren't great, but she's showing up for herself. So it's really exciting when I'm hearing from real women saying, I'm doing this and I'm seeing results. I mean, she's not coming to me for coaching. She is
just doing the book,
and just following some tips that I've been giving, that I share very generous, just are very all over my Instagram. And she's just taking the step and applying it and seeing real results. And that's just always so gratifying to me.
Yeah, yes, it is. It is. So we're almost coming to the end. I mean, we could chat for hours, I think. Yes. And I love the energy that I'm feeling from you as well. But I do want to ask you a question, and I'll just make a note of something else before I forget, so that I ask you after this. But a question that I ask all of my guests is, what does being a woman living well after 50 mean to you?
I think that's an excellent question. And to me, it means living a life of my own design, just like we've been talking about. Like, living well is living the life that we create for ourselves. That to me is living well. So that's going to be a little bit different for everybody, from where we want to live to how we want our days to look. But it's living a life that we've designed. And there's two words that I use a lot for the way I want my life to feel. I think words are really powerful. And one is, I want to be delighted by my day. So I think about that a lot in the morning. Like, I want to be surprised and delighted. It could be the little things, seeing lots of butterflies on my walk or whatever, but I want to be delighted. Sometimes I'll literally say, like, universe, delight me today. And you never know what's going to happen, but it's, you can be delighted in all kinds of ways. And then the other word that I love is satisfaction. I want to be satisfied at the end of the day. Some days maybe I'm satisfied by really hard work. I really worked hard, and I had one weekend where, and I'm all about taking breaks and rest and everything else, but I had a weekend where I worked all weekend long on some techie stuff, but that I was designing. I'm kind of redesigning my web, like a web page. I took down my big website. It was just cumbersome. And now I have this just real simple web page. And I worked on that all weekend. And it was it was challenging, but I did it and I learned a lot. And I felt so satisfied with myself, like proud, satisfied. Other times, a satisfying day would be that I ate really good food and, enjoyed the company of good friends. But I want to end the day feeling satisfied with how the day was. Maybe some hard stuff came up, but I can still feel satisfied. Yes. My car broke just last week. And this is a great example of using affirmations. My car broke down. I love my little car. I drive a BMW convertible. Broke down on the highway. I was blocking a highway off ramp, blocking traffic. I had to call 911, get a tow truck and everything. And I can tell you, the whole thing was a delight. As much, not my first thought as I was stuck there, but I thought, okay, I said, I'm willing for this to be easier and more magical than I can imagine. And it was. Like, everything about it went so smoothly. And I went to bed that night satisfied with how I handled myself in a difficult situation that was scary at first. and satisfied with how everything went. Grateful for how everything went.
Yeah,
So it
great
doesn't-
example.
So it's not that every day is going to be picture perfect, but we can still be satisfied with it.
Love that. Love that. Delighted and satisfied. Okay, now how can our listeners contact you? What's the best way? Is that, well, they can follow, and what I'll be doing is I'll be putting the links in the show notes anyway, but I know you're on Instagram.
Yes, so that is the best way. So 2 best ways to reach me are, and you can put both these in the show notes, are to follow me on Instagram, and I will shout out my handle in case somebody's listening to this while they're driving. It's a long one, but it's all spelled out: happy, healthy, and hot _ Elizabeth. And once you're fine, like, you can message me on Instagram, but you are welcome. You have my email address, Sue.
Yes.
You are welcome to put that in the show notes. I would welcome an email if anybody wants to reach out to me, especially if they're not on Instagram. They have questions, want to get in touch with me in any way. My journal's on Amazon, but they can reach out to me for any questions at all. I can send them information about coaching or anything else that they're interested in.
Yeah, that's great. I was going to say that I saw the journal on Amazon, so I'll put the link in there as well. And I think I'll get myself a copy. And I've got a couple of friends who I know would probably like a copy of that as well. So it's certainly been a delight for my day to be chatting to you today, Elizabeth.
You as well. And I would love, so the journal I know is in Scotland, in oh my gosh, they've been all over the world. I know France.
We'll have to make it Australia if it isn't.
But so I would love to see some pictures of the journal in Australia. That would make my day.
Yeah. Okay. So you would be delighted and satisfied with that.
I would be delighted and satisfied. Yes, that would delight me.
Okay. Well, look, thanks so much for joining me. It has been delightful chatting to you, and I really have felt your energy, as I said, and the enthusiasm you have for helping other women to, achieve their next level. And I, would love to chat to you again at another time.
I would love that. Yes, this has really been a delight. So thank you so much.
No problem. Thanks again for joining me.
You're welcome.
Well, thanks for joining me for another episode of Women Living Well After 50, the podcast. I hope that you've enjoyed my discussion today with Elizabeth Resnick about how we can level up. I hope you've enjoyed the episode on the 5 steps to next level you and how we can be happy, healthy, and hot. If you've enjoyed the episode, I'd love you to leave me a like or a comment. And also share it with a friend who you think might benefit from listening to the episode. So remember, being happy, healthy, and hot. And until I see you next time, I want you to live well, enjoy life, and most of all, be a woman living life your way. Bye for now.